Hello, everyone. It's Gordon Gossi again, coming at you live and unscripted. Today it's still Friday the 2nd of August, 2024. And if you've been on my channel before, you know who shows up at the start of every video, pretty much every video, 99% of them, Candy the Wonder Pup. And Candy immediately gets a thumb up. I think a lot of people like Candy better than me, and that's fine. Hello. Yeah, you're a good girl. You want a treat. Shake a paw. Lay down. Speak. Oh, good speak. Show your pretty face. There you go. People like looking at you better than me. There you go. There you go, Candy. I wanted to talk tonight about, I'm going to pronounce the name Imane Khelif. I don't speak, I speak English and French, but I'm not 100% sure I'm pronouncing that right. So apologies if I got the name, if I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's spelt ImaneKhelif or something like that. I've written it down below. It's in the subject line. And I know that I'm late to the game in terms of injecting my opinions into this story. I know the YouTube game. I know the social media game where people are hooked on engagement and hooked on trying to gain followers and subscriptions and things like that. And in a lot of cases, people will one, you want to be first. You want to be on top of a hot issue. You want to be one of the first ones out of the gate. And then two, the more polarizing your view, one side or another, you want to stake out a position and defend it like a pit bull on a bone, and just engage in inflammatory rhetoric and that, and heighten the conflict, and that drives engagement, that drives likes, views, subscriptions, all the things that, and I've spoken about it many times, there's a chemical in the brain, and I should look this up at some point, but I know it's either an endorphin or a dopamine, or that dopamine is an endorphin. It's a chemical in the brain that when we get engaged with in social media, it's a little chemical reaction that takes place, that it's basically a little happy drug. Oh, I'm important. And whether one wants to admit it or not, I think it's something everyone is prone to, and I'm guilty as charged. But if you're aware of it, I think that helps mitigate it, that helps lessen it, that helps you to keep a level head and not worry about it as much, although it's still there. Anyway, with that being said, if you like my video, please give it a thumb up. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, hit, you know the whole drill. At any rate, this is an incredibly complicated issue because there is the transgender debate on one side. And the way I define that is, for me, I've said it many times on this channel. I haven't spoken at length specifically about this case involving the Olympic boxing tournament, the female boxing. I haven't spoken specifically about this, but I speak often about the whole transgender debate and how I am part of that massive horde in the population who views gender as something that is binary. There are two genders. There's XX, that's women. There's XY, that's men. And it's as old as human history that men born XY with an X and Y chromosome, so male, who, for whatever reason, socialization, interpersonality, whatever, think I should have been born a woman. And likewise, women who are XX who think I should have been born a man, that fate made a mistake, or from a religious perspective, that God made a mistake. And for the longest time, for the overwhelming majority of human history, there was really nothing you could do about it. There was no pharmaceutical products to be prescribed, like puberty blockers. There's no money to be made prescribing individuals who are under this belief that I was born into the wrong gender. No, there was no pharmaceutical product that could be prescribed and profited from. And there were no mutilating surgeries to perform. You couldn't mutilate healthy tissues and organs, as in the case of, double mastectomies and castrations. So, but now, of course, we live in a different era. We live in an era where these things are possible. And I refer to puberty blockers as dangerous pharmaceuticals because there are dangers, there are side effects, it's documented that the one that I'm most familiar with is that puberty blockers are proven to reduce bone density. And and these are obviously puberty blockers. Puberty is something you go through in adolescence. So we're dealing with children. And by prescribing puberty blockers, you're subjecting children to reduce bone density, which in the context of old women is called osteoporosis. That's weak and brittle bones, a disease or a condition that primarily affects older women, now subjugating children to the potential for this disease. I have issues with that. I also have issues with mutilating surgeries that remove healthy tissues and organs. And I think you're treating a symptom. You're not treating the root cause of the problem. A child believing that they were born into the wrong gender. But let's get on to Imane Khelif, because she, and I'm going to use the pronoun she, because, and this is where it gets incredibly complicated, and some who share my broader view on the whole transgender stuff will say, well, don't call, it's not a she. And I'm going to say that, yes, Imane Khelif is a woman, pronoun she, her, because that's what you use for women. And I don't think we have the full story yet, but from what I am able to gather, it seems to me that this is an individual, Imane Khelif, that she was born outside of the simple XYXX paradigm that over 99% of the population is born into. From everything I'm able to read, over 99% of the human population, it's very simple, it's binary, it's XXXY. And that's for 99% of the population. Cryptomeria is writing. Thank you for coming on, Cryptomeria. That's a dude. Now, my age is no secret. I'm 58. And I went to high school. When I was in high school, there were girls, women, females, who had very much physiology. They had the physiology of men, but they were women. They had breasts, they had a vagina. Not that I saw it intimately, but these were biological women, but they had very male traits. And in the case of Imane Khelif, I don't know all the details, and I don't suspect I ever will know the full details. Because it's possible for an individual to be born with outer male genitalia and internal female organs, and to develop breast tissue, and also a penis and also have a penis and testicles. And I've always heard the term referred to as intersex, not transgender, intersex, between the two sexes. I do not, my degrees in biology, like all my other scientific degrees, comes from the internet, and which puts me in with the majority of the population. But as I understand, I don't understand how the chromosomes get messed up, but I know they do get messed up. And as I say, I knew individuals in high school, and it was primarily primarily as a man, I would notice it most often in women, but I'm sure it existed in guys too. That guys, and this makes this whole situation incredibly problematic, because what do you do now? It's not a transgender issue. It's not a case of an XY male wanting to compete against XX females. It's a case of a competitive athlete who has a genetic or a chromosomal anomaly, and this chromosomal anomaly will give individuals with this anomaly, it will give them a competitive advantage in the sporting arena. And if it's javelin, if it's swimming, if it's discus throwing, that's one thing. Fair enough. No one's going to get hurt. But when you're in the boxing ring, or possibly, I guess, mixed or martial arts, because I think martial arts are also a competitive Olympic sport, and competitive sports and other avenues. There are international competitions and the like. Well, these are combat sports, and people do it even happens, in male boxing, just men fighting with each other, whether it be at the amateur or in the professional ranks. Boxers have been killed. And again, this is what makes it incredibly problematic. Now, the IBA, which is the International Boxing Association, they have issued a statement, and it's short on detail. It doesn't give us nitty-gritty detail. It just states that Imane Khelif and this other individual, that they failed a test. I'm gonna share it so you can read it. Let me do the old share screen thing. And Whale Oil Beef is here. Thank you for showing up again, my friend. Always appreciate both you and Cryptomeria and anyone else. I see I have a number of people watching. You don't have to let Whale Oil and Cryptomeria dominate. They're welcome to say what they want to say. But anyone else is welcome to chime in on the conversation as well in the live chat. So I'm sharing my screen. Okay. And I'm just going to read. IBA, that's the International Boxing Association, reaffirms the position on removal of boxers from all events, aims to protect female boxers, and condemns both the IOC, International Olympic Committee, and World Boxing for allowing ineligible athletes to compete. This came out just a day ago on the 1st of August. Further to the IBA statement made yesterday evening regarding the removal of ineligible athletes from all IBA female competitions, we reiterate our stance and firm position. IBA remains committed to ensuring competitive fairness in all our events. We absolutely condemn the inconsistencies in eligibility to compete in the boxing competition held in the Paris Olympics 2024. To reiterate, both Imane Khelif and Lin Yu Ting post-testing did not meet the required eligibility criteria to compete within the female category of our respective events. I'm going to read that again, because it's not stating their gender. It's just saying both Imane Khelif and Lin Yu Ting post-testing did not meet the required eligibility criteria to compete within the female category of our respective events. Now, and this is where it's short on detail, but there are other reports saying that they had elevated levels of testosterone. And there are other ways to get elevated levels of testosterone beyond just being something other than XX or XY. Testosterone is in steroids, for example. And back in I think it started in the 70s, but certainly in the 80s, Eastern Bloc countries, the old Soviet Bloc countries, Czechoslovakia, Poland, East Germany and such, were rampantly accused of giving hormonal treatments to their female athletes. I think there was a Simpsons episode where they jokingly referred to the East European women. Yeah, and if you're old enough, if you're of my generation or older, you'll remember that you would look at these women competing in typically strength type events like discus, javelin, shot put, hammer throw, things like that. They didn't look like women, but I'm assuming, of course, that they were women and that they simply been jacked up on hormonal treatments to increase muscle mass and things like that. Anyway, getting back to what the IBA is writing. The decision made by the IBA on 24 March 2023 was subsequently ratified by the International Boxing Association Board of Directors on the 25th of March 2023, so just one day later. The official record of this decision can be accessed on the IBA website here, and they give you a link. The urgent nature of the decision was justified, as the safety of our boxers is our top priority. The disqualification was based on 2 trustworthy tests conducted on both athletes in 2 independent laboratories as follows. And it says they had a women's world boxing championship in Istanbul in 2022. So they were tested then. And then they were tested again the following year in New Delhi for the World Boxing Championships. They referred to the tests as trustworthy. What else are they going to say? I assume that the tests are trustworthy. I'm assuming, it's always dangerous, but I'm assuming that they were based on things like testosterone level. Then it says, for clarification, Lin Yuting did not appeal the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, thus rendering the decision legally binding. And Imane Khelif initially appealed the decision, but withdrew the appeal during the process, which they say also made the IBA decision legally binding. Further to the decisions made above, and knowingly allowing Imane Khelif to compete, World Boxing, whose sole purpose of existence is to support the Olympic movement, has equally endorsed and reinforced ineligible athletes to compete in their very own recently announced events. Alarmingly, the World Boxing 2024 USA Boxing International Invitational Tournament saw Khelif compete in the finals on the 16th of April 2024, with a further outing that took place during the Eindhoven Box Cup, supported by World Boxing, that took place on 18th April 2024. We absolutely do not understand why any organization would put a boxer at risk with what could be a potential serious injury within the field of play. The main role of the referee in the ring is to manage the boxer's safety at all times. How is this reasonably practicable when a boxer fails to meet the eligibility criteria to compete? The IBA will never support any boxing bouts between the genders, as the organization puts the safety and well-being of our athletes first. We are protecting our women and their rights to compete in the ring against equal rivals, and we will defend and support them in all instances. Their hopes and dreams must never be taken away by organizations unwilling to do the right thing under difficult circumstances. IBA stands by its position, blah, blah, blah. So that's the IBA's statement. And I have Cryptomeria writing and making the point, why not have a separate category for trans individuals? And that's a comment that's been made by many people. I've echoed it myself at times, but the issue here is that there's the trans debate, which is, men like Bruce Jenner, to dead name someone, Caitlyn Jenner. A name is a name is a name is a name. Bruce Jenner is someone who I think I'm fairly certain did what I refer to as the full Monty transition. Born a fully, a complete XY male and is still chromosomally an XY male, but had the full surgical procedure, breast implants, castration, and the whole bit. And I don't know exactly what goes on to make the full transition. And so, but to me, Bruce Jenner is a surgically altered male. He's a man who's surgically altered. And that's my take. And I know I saw Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn Jenner debating famously with Ben Shapiro. And I thought, Jenner, I'll just use the last name, Jenner demonstrated typical male aggressive behavior, what we tend to view as typical male aggressive behavior, by threatening to send Ben Shapiro home in a body bag. And I thought that was brilliant because, yeah, you're an XY and you're still XY. You're still a man. You've surgically altered, but you're still a guy. And I don't think Jenner is going to care much about me. He's not going to come down into rural southeastern Ontario and knocking on my door. But if he does, or then I'll become famous probably in some respect. But the question is, what do you do in these incredibly rare cases, less than 1% of the population? And the difficulty is, it's hard to get a percentage on this. One I hear frequently is 0.3, which is not super rare. It's not super rare. That would mean out of 1,000 people, there would be 3 people there'd be 997 who are XXXY, one of the two, roughly half and half men, half women, half XX, half XY. And then there would be 2 or 3 individuals who would fall outside of that paradigm, who would be XXY or XYY or however it breaks down. Again, no degree in biology. And how do you deal with that individual? And you get down to a question of group rights over individual rights. And it's been a long-held belief by me and many people that group rights or individual rights end where they start to impact on the groups of the broader, or the rights of the broader society. Your right to freedom, my right to freedom movement is respected up until the point where I want to, move my fist into someone's face. Now I'm impacting someone else. And this Imane Khelif, who I'm going to refer to as a woman, I feel sorry for, and you got to have some genuine empathy with someone who is born outside of the typical paradigm, someone who's born other than XX and XY. And what's the Saturday Night Live famously did a running skit on this. They had an individual with an androgynous name called Pat, and you can look into this. You can check it out. Just check out Pat SNL, a very androgynous individual, and the interactions were always, their little skits were always about people trying to determine, is Pat a guy or a girl? And Pat was always very good at steering away from any type of, anything. She wouldn't say he, she, it, would not say anything that would help the other cast members in their little skits determine, or the audience to guess, what is their gender. And I think we've all known individuals like this over the course of our lifetimes. And I imagine that life for them is very difficult. And not everyone who has this genetic anomaly, this chromosomal anomaly, is going to have a competitive advantage. I have worked with an individual who is in this intersex space, and it would not, and from what I'm understanding, is that this individual who doesn't, who occupies both, who isn't just strictly XX or XY, is basically going through medical procedures to be fully male, to be fully XY. But if this individual didn't, if this individual chose female and decided to affirm that part of it, she wouldn't, as a female, have a competitive advantage over any women. She's just not built that way. So, again, this gets incredibly complex. And ultimately, there are individuals who do suffer from this. It doesn't look like Imane Khelif if you're, able to, medal in world boxing events and such. You got to be reasonably together. But although, look at Jenner. Jenner won the gold medal. I think it was at the 1976 Montreal Olympics as in decathlete, and then later became Caitlyn Jenner. So anyway, I'm going to catch up on what's being written. Whale oil beef writes, in my opinion, respect purity of biological creation or not. Physical competition is not the same as intellectual competition. Boxing is not the same as playing chess while seated. It'd be one thing, even if it was discus or javelin or shot put or events like that, strength, where an individual may have been born with a genetic advantage because as a female athlete. We look at Andre the Giant. He had an overactive, I think it was an overactive pituitary gland, and he grew to be 7'6", 7'8", 500 pounds. And that was a medical condition that he had that caused him to grow abnormally. It's called, I believe, at least in days gone by, it was called giganticism or something to that effect. And it's a medical condition, and it has to be treated. Otherwise, the patient dies because the pituitary gland just keeps excreting growth hormone, and a person keeps growing and growing and growing. And that can give you advantages, obviously, in basketball, wrestling, in competitive sports, football. And so, and that's where things get difficult. I wish they would give more detail on both of these two individual boxers, this Imane Khelif, and I forget the name of the other. It's something else, again, when you see it's something else again when you see that swimmer for the NCAA swimmer with his bulge, wearing a woman's swimming outfit on a male body. Doesn't matter how well endowed a guy is, the evidence is clear. And, and this is where the details matter. There's a video circulating in social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, I guess, all of them. And it shows this Imane Khelif and this Italian boxer as they're doing the hand-raising ceremony, the winner. And what it shows is Imane Khelif, seemingly something every guy has done, adjusting, doing the little south of the equator adjustment. And the problem is that real or not? I don't know. In the world of AI, in the world of deep fakes and everything like that, individuals will absolutely distort and fabricate and outright lie to prove their point of view, to substantiate their point of view. So I don't know whether that was real or not. Again, I don't have television in the house. I don't have a satellite or have a TV, but it's not hooked up to satellite or cable. And so it just sits there. 99% of the time, it's just black. nothing on it. Sometimes I hook up the computer and we'll watch a streaming something or other. Going to catch up. Just want to read up what's being written. Sheriff writes, why not make the trans athlete special category in the Special Olympics out? See, and that's the problem. That's this individual rights versus group rights. And in this case, you would not allow in years gone by. I mean, initially, the Eastern European athletes who were engaged in hormonal and growth hormone therapy, testosterone therapy, were able to gain a competitive advantage over other women because they were taking testosterone and other male hormones and such, and they were able to, outcompete their fellow female competitors through pharmaceuticals, through drug therapies. And that was eventually, it took some time, but it was eventually deemed illegal, and you were no longer allowed to do it. And I think this should fall into the same category. The unfortunate thing is Imane Khelif likely did nothing wrong, in the sense, didn't choose this, just the way they were born. And I don't think this would have been an issue in years gone by. I think they simply would have said, sorry, you're not able to compete. You don't meet the requirements. And too bad, so sad. But in the political, because everything is political now, including sports, and certainly the Olympics has always been hyper political. And in this political environment of DEI and being inclusionary and being tolerant and everything, that common sense gets thrown out the window. And so, ultimately, I don't think that Khelif, what's the name again? Horrible memory. What's the name? Imane Khelif. That Imane Khelif, ultimately, I do not think she should have been allowed to compete. But now we have this whole, what's permeating the debate is, she's not a woman. It's a he. And that's spiteful. I mean, I'm assuming that Imane Khelif was born with chromosomes for both, and with, organs and genitalia of both. And so, and from what I understand, she's Algerian, and in Algeria is an Islamic country, and Islam, as a professing Christian, I got to look at the log in our own eye. At least in terms of Islam, they don't go down this men are men and women are women. They're in that respect, Islamic countries have it right. Men are men and women are women. But we do have to recognize that there are less than 1% of the population cases where, again, someone doesn't necessarily fall into that simple, the binary paradigm that gender is. I mean, you're one or the other. But there are two choices, male and female, but some individuals, because of their chromosomes, when they're born, they're between, or they have characteristics of both. Those are the two. There's no more than that. It's not endless. It doesn't go on forever. Those are the two. And anyway, going to catch up. Sheriff of YouTube writes that Bruce still has his penis. I'll use the proper term. I don't know if he does or not, and I don't care. He's Bruce Jenner, and if he's a surgically altered male, fully surgically altered or only somewhat, I don't care. Cryptomary writes that boxer didn't have anything altered, or that's a banana in her pocket. Again, I'm approaching this based on the assumption that Imane Khelif, this boxer from Algeria, that she's biologically female with male chromosomal, a male chromosomal anomaly. And it happens. There's no need to be hateful to people. You know, I deal a lot with the public, and in my job, the job I'm working currently. And you get this is just the type of person I am. There's a young kid who just started working with us, and he has cerebral palsy. So, and it affects his walking. He doesn't have strength in his legs, although he can still walk. He can still work. He just has a, weak legs. And I'm the type of individual who, when I first met him, I said, "Hey, I'm Gordon. What's you're new here?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm John." That's not his name. I said, "Yeah, I'm John." I said, "Hey, how you doing, John?" He's like, "Oh, good." I said, "When do you start?" And he's in a program, government program, placing him in work. He's a high school kid, and maybe getting his hours. I don't know. They have all these new programs. And I said to him, what's, and I just came out and said it. What's with your legs? Is it MS? Is it? And he goes, "No, it's cerebral palsy." "Oh, okay." And that's the way I prefer to deal with things, because otherwise I think an individual in that situation realizes that people are thinking about it, and I think it's just stupid to pretend it doesn't exist. And, I think it's almost unkind. Transgender, or not transgender, but this whole intersex thing where the chromosomes get messed up. And again, I've known individuals who are, is that a guy or a girl? You're not sure. You're not sure. And life has got to be very hard for these individuals. I'm going to read up. Sheriff of YouTube writes, "Oh God." And Cryptomeria says, "If they want sympathy, it's in the dictionary." Well, do we really want to be mean-spirited? You want to be a hateful person? I think that's a question, everyone has to look in the mirror and ask themselves. Do you want to be mean-spirited? Do you want to be hateful? I'm a Christian. I state this openly all the time. And am I going to, how would Jesus react to an individual who was not XX nor XY, who fell outside of that paradigm? How would Jesus react? Would Jesus shun them? Would Jesus say, "If you want sympathy, look it up in the dictionary"? What would Jesus do? And I think Jesus would love and accept them. Now, does that mean they get to compete in the Olympic boxing, where an individual whose this chromosomal anomaly gives them a competitive advantage over the other women? That's another question. It doesn't have to be hateful to exclude someone. Someone who's vision impaired isn't allowed to drive. It's not cruel. It's not mean. It's just reality. It's not safe. And it's not safe for all the boxers in the ring who have to go in against a competitor who has a genetic advantage over them. Sheriff of YouTube writes about XY who want to compete against XX, and that is completely different. And this is where I wish we had more details on it. I wish we had more details. I wish the testing that the IBA did is very non-specific. They don't give you the details. They just give you the results. I'm going to go to that IBA upload of the meeting minutes about their testing. And from what I've read in other articles, they had these two boxers had elevated levels of testosterone, which could also serve as an indication that they're taking anabolic steroids much like the Eastern European women athletes did during the 1970s and 80s. Now, everything is flying fast and furious on here, so let me catch up. TJ in TGen, I'm just going to say TGen. Just wanted to say hello, happy weekend, and to you as well. Cryptomeria says that I'm more tolerant than Cryptomeria is. Sorry, there's nothing in me that thinks he, she is a he, she. So are you denying the existence of intersex, of people who are born outside of the XY, XX paradigm? Because that's, to me, that's just reality. It happens. And it's sad that it happens. It's sad when anyone is born with any condition that differentiates them. It's got to be tough. And I think it's mean-spirited. Binary is nice in a way because it makes the world easy to deal with. Someone's either all good, all bad, all right, all wrong. Makes life very simple. But life isn't always that simple, especially things like this. Sometimes you need to take a nuanced view, and taking a nuanced view requires you to, it's not easy. It's difficult. It takes effort. Sometimes it takes learning. And a lot of individuals don't want to do that. They want easy. I want easy. Donald Trump. Donald Trump is either a saint or he's the devil. One of the two. There's no nuance. You can't say, well, I like this and I like that. I didn't like that. You got to pick one or the two. And it's a comfortable way to deal with things is to take an individual like Donald Trump and say, here, it's black and white. It's yes or no. It's right and wrong. But life isn't always that simple. And if we're going to get along, we have to be able to walk in another person's shoes and at least try to understand their point of view. TJ writes, if XXY or XYY, TJ's talking about, I believe, what I'm calling chromosomal anomalies. There have been cases like that before, and they usually have been thrown out of the Olympics. And I think the reason, if that is indeed the case with this Imane Khelif and this other individual, I forget what country they're from, but these two individuals, if that's the case where they're like XXY or XYY, where they're outside the normal paradigm, I think in bygone eras, they would have been told, sorry, you can't compete. You don't fit the criteria. But now in the political climate that we're in, where everyone is woke and tolerant and, feelings supersede facts, that now we're erring on the wrong side. We're going way, we jumped the shark, to use a trite expression. Thanks for that, TJ. Whale Oil Beef writes, I recall when East Germany was supplying bio-altered athletes to the Olympics, Russia also, others too, the Eastern Bloc countries, West Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, whatever. The Eastern Bloc countries, Soviet Bloc countries, were absolutely engaging in hormonal treatment, testosterone and things like that, to bulk up their female athletes and give them a competitive advantage at the Olympics. And that's what happens. And that's what happened. And that was before the era of drug testing. Now we have drug testing, which is what the IBA, International Boxing Association, administered. And from what I understand, that it was everything being written says that their hormonal levels, their levels of testosterone was outside of what was the allowable. That's how Ben Johnson got his gold medal taken away. He was taking an anabolic steroid called stanzanol or something like that, that elevated his testosterone. And that's how he got caught. Up until then, prior to him being caught, he could just deny. Testosterone does allow, again, my degrees in biology and all these other sciences, but it's my understanding that testosterone allows you to build muscle mass. greater, at greater levels, and it gives you more endurance, and you can train longer and harder. But it also comes with health risks as well. And if this Imane Khelif did not take any anabolic steroids, if it's just that's her physiology, and I don't know whether she has a penis or not. Unfortunately, this has always existed. There have always been, as TJ wrote, XXY or XYY. Not everyone, it's a very small percentage. I don't know how, it's the figure I keep hearing is 0.3, but I've also heard people say it's less than 0.2. I've heard 0.03. I know it's less than 1 in 100. It might be 1 or 2 in 1,000 people, but it happens. Anyway, gonna keep reading and then wrap this up. Sheriff thinks I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, that these are not intersex. He thinks that these two boxers are actually men, and that would make it easy. That would make it easy. Cryptomeria says it's so statistically rare, I don't care, call me mean. Sheriff writes, they're still have either XY or XX. Yeah, and then they have extra. They have additional chromosomes that are not supposed to be there. Cryptomeria. It's a dude beating up a woman and you want to excuse it. I don't want to excuse it. I do not think this individual, based on the IBA drug testing that showed them having elevated testosterone level, the transgender debate, intersex debate aside, I think based on that criteria alone, they should have been excluded, the same way that Ben Johnson had his gold medal taken away at the Seoul 1988 Olympics for having elevated testosterone. We know they have elevated testosterone, so they should automatically be excluded. That's, I'm not talking about that. I do agree that they should be excluded from competition based on elevated levels of testosterone and nothing else. Sheriff writes, there are 0 people born XXL or YG. I don't know. Sometimes there have been times in my life where I've needed XXL clothing. And you're not mean for thinking that women's sports should be protected. I think that women's sports should be protected. And the whole transgender thing is what has foisted this upon us. If it wasn't for the whole transgender debate, then this Imane Khelif and this other individual would have been told, sorry, your testosterone levels are too high. You're unable to compete. But I didn't do anything, and it's not fair. Sorry, we've got to look after the safety of the athletes. Maybe you can do something medically, go see your doctor, get your testosterone levels down. Maybe we'll let you compete. Please don't tell me to wake up. I hate that expression. I'm not asleep. I do prefer the expression. The one I prefer is open your eyes. Some people do willfully, and I think we all do it to one degree or another. Close our eyes about certain issues. Too uncomfortable. I'll confront anything and state my opinions. I do. It's never been my desire to be hateful, ever. Christians are called even to love our enemies. Doesn't mean we have to put up with stuff, but it doesn't mean we have to be hateful. TJ writes, yes, many think anabolics are about muscles, but it's not. It's about recuperating super fast. Yeah. What it allows you to do, testosterone, basically anabolic steroids, which are based on testosterone, just allow you to work out a lot harder for longer periods of time and then recuperate faster and build that muscle mass that women can't. Cryptomary said it's 0.03. It's less than 1 in 100K. It's okay, Gordon, you like the girly men. Let's, we can, yes, there, you said it there. We can agree to disagree. Not going to agree on everything. Like, we do agree that Imane Khelif and this other individual should not have been allowed to compete in the Olympics. You think it's because they're men. And I think, irrespective of whether they're men or women, that their testosterone level is too high. And so, sorry, whether you're intersex or trans or whatever the case, your testosterone levels are too high. You're not allowed to compete. You're treating me unfairly. Well, we got to look after the safety of all the other competitors. So basically mirroring what the IBF, or the IBA rather, said. TJ. Hey, TJ got a new job. And hey, may God, grant you success in your new endeavors. And TJ is asking for prayers for their new job. Sheriff of YouTube doesn't think I'm able to wrap my head around this madness. I'm going to have to be introspective for a bit and question. I'll ponder the question of whether whether my viewpoint is being framed out of a desire to get approbation from the unthinking mob and to be perceived as a good person. I've made my views on transgenderism, and I've always said during transgender, I'm not talking about intersex. I always I always bring that up. And this is where, sadly, I wish there was more details. I wish we knew exactly. Tell me, what, is this individual Imane Khelif and this other one, are they XX or are they fully XX, fully XY, or are they something else? Tell me. The more detail, the better. Do they have internal female organs and outward male genitalia? Like, what's the deal? I did see that video of Imane Khelif seemingly adjusting, doing the south of the border, south of the equator adjustment. And the only thing is, things are so easily faked. I saw it on social media, and I don't, just as I don't absolutely trust the mainstream media. I know they lie all the time. But lies get promoted over social media as well. Things like videos can be manipulated. Hermaphrodites wouldn't also be taking steroids and thinking they're going to win the Olympics. TJ writes, if about the issue of tolerance, there is the tolerance paradox. I don't remember it exactly, but basically tolerance of the intolerant leads to serious oppression. That is the paradox. I've heard of the paradox of, because do you tolerate intolerance? Do you tolerate a racist? Do you tolerate a person who is intolerant? Well, they have a racist view, an intolerant view. Are you going to tolerate it? That's the paradox you're talking about, TJ. And you're welcome for the prayers. When someone asks for prayers, send them out. Send me an email, TJ. When I pray for a person, I always like to know their first and last name. It's just a thing with me. I used to attend a men's prayer group. I'm unfortunately working so many hours I can't go anymore. But I think there is power in speaking the name of the individual being prayed. I have known some 100% absolutely total females who I can tell you I know they're female because I've seen the full anatomy. But who minus their anatomy, jaw, musculature. I've seen some very butchy men, or sorry, butchy women. I've seen women. They're women. They have breasts. They have all the equipment, the vagina. They're women, but male-like jaw, broad shoulders, muscled, but they're women. And not everyone. Years ago, I'm going to end it off here. Years ago, before our society became hypersexualized, when maybe back in the 40s, 50s, 40s, 30s, when we were not a hypersexualized society, when people dressed conservatively, when they didn't look to, and we even sexualize our kids now in terms of their dress. This wasn't an issue. But now, because our society is so hypersexualized, it matters. And I know, this notion that we could go back to the 1930s, 40s, to a more conservative era, is not going to happen. But you start to see the wisdom of the way that society used to operate in bygone eras, that in the younger years, I would look down my nose at it and think that they were stupid and ignorant. And now I look back and I look at it and I go, they were onto something. They were not hypersexualized. Anyway, just reading TJ's comment, and then I'm going to end. I'm search engine. This seems 18 intersex people that have been competing at the Olympics and that win medals really often, 36% chance it seems, if one can trust a quick search. Interesting. And TJ further says hypersexualization is maybe one of our time's worst things, actually. Whale Oil writes, we can't go by 30s, 40s photos because film was expensive then, and they wasted with being silly, rather poised. Hey, Jason King, you got on here late, but no problem. Hey, whether you agreed with me or disagreed with me, thank you for watching. I left this one alone for a long time. And then I got into a bit of a flame war on Facebook with a guy going on and on about the whole thing. And as I've been doing this video, he's probably written more. But it was the one calling all mediocre. There's a meme going around of a poster showing a Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner type individual throwing a javelin, and says, calling all mediocre males. Women's medals, records, scholarships, sponsorships are now up for grabs. Live your dream by ruining theirs. And I stepped into it. And Martin and I, a guy I don't even know, a friend of a friend, he's full on woke. And I was a little bit snarky. And I wrote, you can't be anti about something fictional. Gender is binary. If that triggers you, oh well, crying whine like a child if it makes you feel better. And then he came back and said, please don't attack people personally, use principled arguments. And I said, okay, denying objective biological fact is an attack on reality itself. Please don't engage in this harmful behavior. It causes kids to take dangerous pharmaceutical products with proven harms like puberty blockers and to have mutilating surgical procedures. Be better, be a human being. And this is where Brian wrote, okay, facts. The woman boxer was identified as female at birth, has female genitalia, and comes from a country where trans is illegal. And that's true. She comes from Algeria. And then I wrote, how did she fail a gender test? How do you tell a male chromosome from a female chromosome? You pull down its genes. What is their genetic makeup? Is it XX or XY, or is it intersex, meaning neither XY or XX, which happens less than 1% of the time? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I can go on forever. Sheriff writes, don't waste too much time on Facebook. I don't have television. Whale O Beef, good night. Another worthwhile stream, well orchestrated. Well, good, bad, or otherwise, it is what it is. Bonsoir, Daniel, mon ami de Montréal. And yeah, it's a never-ending discussion. And I'm probably going to leave it alone for now. But if you did like it, if you did enjoy this, if you made it to the end of an hour-long stream, probably going at double speed to get to it, I will ask you to please hit the like and to help me out. Get my subscriptions up to 1,000. I'm at 960 something. It's kind of just hovering there. And everyone have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you very soon. Good night.